Welcome to our Spotlight on Travel. My name is Amanda Blown. I am one of the owners of Roseborough Travel Agency. Where's Tiffany? Tiffany's in the back. Tiffany Clay is my business partner. She absolutely loves being up front talking. She's going to be the moderator of your event today. No. Together, we are the owners of Roseborough Travel Agency, and we would like to thank you for joining us today at this Spotlight on Travel event. This is a step above the rest. We have a panel of industry experts. Especially, I know that you came to hear at least one of them, and you might not have heard of some of them. So this is your chance to learn about some of the best cruise lines, the most awarded cruise lines within the industry, and I know that it's going to open your eyes to the world and the way that you can travel within it. So we have some Q&A that we'll do today. We will be putting them on the spot with some questions. I know that you love that, don't you? And without further ado, we'll start some questions. But first off, I know that you see probably a whole team wearing blue. Can I get everybody in Roseborough Travel just to stand up? You don't need to come up to the front because it's a little tight in here, but everybody on the Roseborough team, will you just stand up and give all of our guests a wave and say hi? Hello. So we have a whole team here that each of our agents are incredible. They're able to help you. They specialize in different areas. Some of them work from home. Some of them work in the office. And everybody here that you see that just stood up, waved to you, raised their hands, would be more than happy to help you plan the vacation of your dreams when you're done being amazed by the industry experts that we have here. You know it's true. So without further ado, we're going to get started. Now, I've never used this clicker before, so if I start going backwards, tell me, please. All right. So, you don't even know what's up.
No, we don't. Just said that.
So, the first question is, who are you?
I don't know. I'm wondering that myself.
If we could go down, and if you would please tell all of our guests today, our explorers, who you are, what brand do you represent? You are being timed. Who are you? What brand do you represent? Tell us 2 minutes about what cruise line.
Including
No throwing things.
So not just the brand, but including who we are.
Yes, your name, and the cruise line. And
Man, I bet you guys are so happy you're here, huh? I love
I probably.
Well, that's the end of it.
Thank you guys for coming. He said it works. You just have to turn it on.
No, we just have to put the car going on. Who's the?
Oh, look, it's lighting up now.
Technology is not our thing. Travel is.
Which cruise line is it?
So first up, I'm going to have John start for us. Introduction.
Bravo. Well, I'm John Wilson. I'm with Silversea Cruises. Silversea Cruises is a small luxury line. We have 9 ships total, 5 in the classic fleet and 4 in the expedition fleet, ranging in size from 100 to 600 guests. We are all suite vessels, all butlers on board as well. We go to more destinations than any other cruise line. We are your destination cruise line. When I say that, you can be on back-to-back cruises on us in the Mediterranean, 5 or 6 cruises and not repeat a port of call, because literally we have guests that sail with us quite on many voyages back-to-back. So again, luxury, we're all about service and food on board, but truly about the destination. And being smaller, we're able to get you much closer than most other people. Like in London, when we say we're going to London, we actually dock in front of the Tower Bridge because we can do that. So it's one of those advantages. Thank you.
Very good. Wow. All right, Monique.
I'm Monique Ross, and I'm with Crystal Cruises, and you can see that I've got a lot of little logos next to me. I represent Crystal Cruises, Crystal River Cruises, Crystal Yacht, as well as Crystal Expedition. So what's nice with us and what's unique to us as a luxury brand company is that once you've traveled on one of our experiences, we're also going to be able to service you whether you want to do a river cruise, if you want to do an intimate, small 62-passenger yacht, if you want to do some more of the exotic destinations such as Antarctica on our expedition ship. We are known for, and you'll see the airplanes up there, we do have 2 airplanes that we charter, an 88-passenger Boeing triple. Anybody wants to charter that, I'll take you out for a steak dinner afterwards, and I don't even eat meat, so that'll tell you how we can really strike a deal. And then we also have a 12-passenger plane that we charter also. But we will be talking today specifically about everything that floats on the water and what Crystal offers. But we are known for our food, our service, our entertainment. And again, it really does come down to the choices that we offer across our experiences and how you personally want to travel in luxury.
Good timing as well. Good afternoon, folks. My name is Sebastien Leroy. So as you can hear, my name sounds a little different, not very American. I'm French originally. I'm representing AmaWaterways. So we are, and you see there's only one icon behind me because we only do rivers. We don't go on ocean, so we won't take you to the countries, we will take you through the countries. So we're a luxury river cruise line, very well known during our 17 years of activity for the diversity of excursions that we offer, for the luxury of our accommodation. And we will talk a little bit about the different rivers and the different theme program that we offer a little bit later today. But before that, I wanted to thank you for being here. Thank you for being here.
And really quick, you're French origin, but you just became...
I got naturalized American citizen, yes.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, you're a Yank. Well, my name is Jennifer Reynolds. I work with Scenic and Emerald Waterways. Most people here have not heard of Scenic and Emerald. We're an Australian company, fairly new in the U.S. If you've ever traveled with any Australians, you know that they are not far off of being pretty nutty. So it's rather an enjoyable journey traveling with the Australians, the Canadians, the Brits, and of course the Americans here in the States. We have 3 things that I'll be really talking about today. 2 of them are river related. One of them is our Scenic River Cruises. And Scenic is a fully inclusive river. I brought one of the brochures up to show you, and it's fully inclusive. We don't even take your credit card when you get on board. So whether it's the Rhine, Main, Danube, you're looking at Portugal, we've got some things overseas in Burma, in Myanmar, and also in Cambodia, and also in Russia. Scenic is fully inclusive. So that's your gratuities, your food, your tours, your transfers, your port taxes, your Wi-Fi, everything that you could think of. So outside of that, I have 16 ships in the Scenic fleet. I have Emerald, which has 7 ships in the fleet, much more contemporary type of cruise line. Again, the Rhine, Main, Danube, a little bit of time in Russia, some killer stuff over in Egypt. Emerald is a little bit different in the sense it's not as inclusive as the full of what we do on Scenic. But both of them are pretty amazing, but very different river experiences. And that, I think, is the challenge of being here today, is understanding and matching you up with the right product. And then the last thing I have is an ocean-going ship called the Scenic Eclipse, and she will be out later this year with 228 people, and she is a vessel that actually has a helicopter and a submarine on board. Wow. That is Scenic and Emerald.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lionel Garcia, and I've been with the Royal Caribbean family of brands for 18 years now. And Azamara Club Cruises is a 3-ship cruise brand owned and operated by the Royal Caribbean family. What makes us unique is how we deliver destination. Our main focus is to give you more time in the destination, more time in port, so that you can really connect with that destination. Today, our 3 vessels visit 365 ports, 81 countries and 7 continents. So we really are trying to take you to all the places in the world that you care to see and visit. And I can't wait to share more about Azamara with you throughout our time together today.
Very good. Thank you. So, distinguishable differences. Where do you go? What do you do? What makes you different from one another? So it's not a competition. It's really about how do you fit best with each one of the people within this audience today, and how do the people in this audience really resonate and figure out where they fit in, what cruise line is best for them. Is a river cruise best for them? Is an ocean cruise best for them? Is an expedition cruise best for them? So you've got them all. So there's distinguishable differences. All right, John, with Silversea, will you start this for us?
Yes, I will. I would.
Sets you apart.
The slide is there. The one big difference is the size of the vessels. And when I say that, again, we 100 to 600 guests. But as the slide shows, where it says 608 to 1250, if we were normal size, built as a normal ship, that represents the Silver Spirit, which is our largest ship. She's 41,000 tons. A normal 41,000 ton ship would have 1,250 people on it. There would be inside and outside cabins, while on Silversea, everything is a suite. So we are all suite vessels. One thing when you board a Silversea ship and you go to your suite, you're going to notice there's one hallway straight down the middle, because there is nothing in the middle, because the suites are extremely large and no inside cabins. Another thing is guest to staff ratio. It's close to a 1-for-1. So we're all about service. That means that when the bartender sees you coming into the bar, and it's the third night that you, when you would probably be the first night. But anyway, on the third night, if you would have wanted the dry martini 3 nights in a row, that martini's going to be on the bar waiting for you when you come in. So it's all about that. And the smaller you get, the more intimate the experiences, and it means a lot. It means a lot of things to different people. But like I was in Alaska, just to give you a quick little story. I was in Alaska one time, and there was a huge ship docked across from us, and there was 400 people waiting in the pouring rain to get back onto that ship. And it didn't matter what category you were in. They saw us from the gangway. We were running back to the ship, and they ran to us with umbrellas, and they escorted us back to the ship. And I turned to Joanne and I said, there's 300 people, 600 eyes staring daggers at us. Yeah. But again, it's one of those differences that really makes, Silversea stand out.
A step above the rest, that's for sure. That's the whole panel that we've been talking about, a step above the rest, but that is definitely.
And you took my line, see that?
Yes, I asked him, how should we market this event? A step above the rest. Perfect. All right, Monique.
So, some of our hallmarks, if you're not familiar with Crystal, is we have more consumer and industry awards in the luxury niche than any other cruise line in history, quite honestly. We are known for that upper level, the elevated level of service and that food. Our staff is like extended family. If you've traveled on Crystal before, we've got 3 generations of family that live on one of our cruise ships. So they are the extended family. We've got guests that will rebook, and they reach out through their agents to us, and they want to know if that butler's on board the ship. They want to know who the maitre d' is going to be, who the cruise director is, because they have a kinship to them as they go forward. Now, as my colleagues and I are talking about specifics, I'm a little at a disadvantage or an advantage, depends on how you look at it, because I do have 4 products that I represent. I've got everything from a 62-passenger intimate yacht, where we've got more staff on board than we've got passengers to take care of you. I've got a 200-passenger all-suite, all-butler service. The yacht's all-butler service as well. That is a 1-to-1 guest-to-crew ratio. Ratio crew to guest. Either way, it's 1-to-1. And then to John's point, too, about talking about tonnage weight, we've got the 2 ocean ships, a 50,000-ton ship that only holds 800 guests. We have a 70,000-ton ship that holds 980 guests. If you like a little bit larger of a vessel that has all the bells and whistles on board, the casino, the shops, the lounges, full-service spa, the various different restaurants, all of that is at your disposal. 5 river ships. As you see, I'm down to 4 now. We're not covering planes tonight. 5 river ships. One that's 154 guests. The other that is 106 guests. We have 4 of those. All verandas in those 4 ships. All butler service. All with those bells and whistles. We talk about space to guest ratio. You heard the term small ship cruising, but you also have to look at what you like to do when you get on board vessels. If you're coming from big ocean ship cruising, 10 to 1, you like cruising, right? So when you go down to a smaller ship, you do sometimes sacrifice certain features on board. Whether those are important to you or not, that's up to you, and that's what we're all here to do, is to educate you on what each of our brands are. What is included, we're pretty much all going to say we are pretty much inclusive, or we're mostly inclusive, but everything that you saw on that slide that just disappeared, there you go, all of that's included. Yes, I am luxury, but I also use value and luxury in the same sentence, because whether you have those funds to spend or not, everybody wants the best value for what they're spending. So that's what we're here to do, is to tell you what we offer. The gratuities, the Wi-Fi, the specialty restaurants, your beverage packages, whether you drink cocktails or not, you still have your specialty teas and coffees and fresh squeezed juices and bottled waters. So again, you have to ask yourself, what do you like to do when you go on vacation? How you like to do it when you go on vacation? And then come to Crystal Cruises, because we've got a little bit of everything for you.
I like to talk about that value the same way, because it's what did you spend on the vacation when you came home from the vacation,
Bingo.
after you paid for the credit card bill,
Right.
not before you went on the trip.
Correct.
So I like that you talked about that. Thank you. All right, Sebastian, will you tell us about your distinguishable differences with AmaWaterways?
Yeah, I will try, because I'm limited in time, but I'll give my best. Well, AmaWaterways, I mean, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, and also maybe quite a few of you have never heard of us. Reason for that is that we do not advertise. I mean, you've never seen us on TV.
Yes.
Reason for that is that we trust our travel partners. So that's why it's very important to us at AmaWaterways to be here. Thank you for having us here, because more than 95% of our bookings are made with our travel partners. The company, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, is 17 years old. We started with zero ships, which might be a little weird for a cruise line. But if we think about it, I mean, you know, our owners, we're still family operated and owned, which is very, very rare in our industry. And we're very proud of that, because the people who started the company are still the same that are at the head of the company now. And while you don't know necessarily their names, you might have heard from some brands that one of them or two of them have been creating. I mean, Rudy China, the president of AmaWaterways, was in the founding team, and I promise I will not talk about the other brands after that, but he has been in the founding team of Viking. He's been in the founding team of Uniworld, for example. And why did we start with zero ship? Because Rudy and Christine and Jimmy and Murphy at the time, they wanted to make sure that the ships would correspond to what they wanted, to what the guests want. Because luxury, what is luxury? Luxury is a very, very interesting concept. And I think what we offer as luxury, and when I say we, I'm very much involved in that, because I've been a cruise director on our ship for 8 years. We want the people to understand that they can, but that they don't have to. And this, I think, is a concept that is very important. When you know that you have the possibility to go on any tour because they are included, but that you don't have to because you've decided that you want to relax today, going through the Iron Gates and look at what's happening when you pass the face of Decheval. And I could tell you a lot of different anecdotes of where you can go. But you do whatever you want, and you know that it is included. You will not be nickel and dined also with. I mean, that's exactly what you were mentioning. You don't have to worry about what do I have to pay if I do this, if I take a bike excursion, what do I have to pay something if I take a hike going to Belograd. You don't have to do that. So it is very important to be able to do what really you want. We are famous for our diversity of excursions. I mean, we have excursions really for all our guests. We have different pace of excursions. We have different types of excursions. They're all guided, of course. We have bikes on board. We've been leading the industry with innovation in terms of excursions. We have now, do I have the AmaMagna back there? Yeah.
You do.
So the AmaMagna, that's our new jewel, I would say, on the river. Because when we talk about rivers, there is one thing that is constant, is the hardware. I mean, there's no secrets. A ship has to be able to go through a lock. So you can hear a lot of things about my ship is designed specially for this. If your ship doesn't go through the lock, you will go nowhere. And what we did with the AmaMagna, we built a ship that will actually be able to convince those who know the ocean but who are still not really sure to go on the river because they've heard that sometimes the staterooms are not that big. But if you look at the stateroom that you have behind me, that's the typical stateroom on the Magna. It's 355 square feet. And it goes up to 710 square feet on this very ship. So you have multiple dining venues. You have a sundowner. We have developed a golf program for the ship. So what sets us apart? We try to lead. We try to always bring new things on rivers. We try to go to new destinations. And I know I'm going ahead already, but I'll talk about destinations later. That's it for me for now.
You might get docked minutes on the next question.
Did you enjoy it?
All right, Jennifer.
You know, it's interesting when you think about cruising or travel or what you want to do, and you pointed on something, you made a comment about luxury, and luxury is certainly a very personal thing. I remember chatting with a gentleman once and he said he traveled luxury, and I assumed it was private jets and the Ritz-Carlton, and something in my gut said, what was your last luxury trip that you did? And for this gentleman it was a suite on Carnival. And that was his luxury and the experience he had. So now I understood what his baseline was, and we could have a pretty intelligent conversation, and we could get him into the right place. You know, so luxury is a word, I think, that's very arbitrary. And when you're looking at the rivers, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of vessels to choose from. And like AMA, we rely on our travel agent partners to bring you to the right ship at the right time on the right kind of itinerary. And you know, it's interesting, when I think about a riverboat, there are 3 decks. It doesn't matter if they got to fit in the locks, good point. But when you look at a riverboat overall, it doesn't matter what they are. They're going to have 3 decks, a bunch of cabins, a main dining room, and a lounge and a sun deck. Kind of like out here in the parking lot. Well, which are hardware. Well, when you move in and you bring in other, you know, certainly secondary restaurants and such. But the basics, when you look at something outside, it's like when you look at the cars out here. You know, all cars in the parking lot, they've all got 4 wheels, they've all got a roof, they've all got a trunk, they've all got a hood. Question is, and this is where I'll go to you two, are you driving a Porsche or are you driving a Kia Rio? And that's kind of what it is in matching you up, I think, with the ships. There are some, I think, differentiations in certain areas. When I speak to Scenic and Emerald, we're generally talking about a clientele that's very active. The people that are on our vessels are not sitting watching the world go by. They're going out doing things. Yet, to your point, they don't feel like they have to. They just can, you know, if people want to go out and do things. We're not a big fleet. When I look at Scenic with 17 or 16 ships in the fleet, it is fully inclusive. There tends to be a unit and a cohesiveness that comes together when you are not getting any kind of a bill on board, and you probably find that, Monique, on your ships too. And then when I look at our Emerald ships, where there's 7, they're slightly different. People are very active on board these vessels. They are getting out and riding the bicycles and enjoying dinner and getting up early in the morning and going out and doing walks and things. So I think when I look at Scenic as a company and say, hey, it's all inclusive, it feels a little bit like a JW Marriott hotel, it's kind of earthy and cool. And then I look at Emerald, which is a little bit more contemporary with some of the softer colors on board. You know, the hardware at the end of the day, a lot of it is very similar, but it's a matter of what you do with it, and it's your food, and it's your style of travel, and it's the people you're traveling with and where they're coming from and what you're doing. So in some cases, I feel very strongly that the differentiators are really very, very minimal, but extremely, extremely, extremely important. And I feel very strongly that's why you talk to a travel professional. They know us, they know what we do, they know what the energy on the ships are like, the style, the flavor, and they can match you up to something that's, you know, that's right. So while I really haven't said, hey, here's what the 1 or 2 things that really differentiate us from everything else, I'm really not clear. I can say the food is good, the entertainment is good, the reviews come back. But I think that really bespokes for all of us. I think that really works that way too. Oh, you had me beat. Don't worry. You're a shipboard guy too.
will you tell us quickly about the differentiating differences between the Scenic Eclipse?
Yeah, Eclipse is a real different animal. Eclipse is brand built, you know, she's brand new. She just had her sea trials last week. She's bigger than a yacht. She's smaller than a cruise ship. There is a helicopter on board. There is a submarine on board as well. We'll be doing a lot of stuff in the Arctic and the Antarctic. So snowshoeing and kayaking, but it is pure on expedition type of travel, whether it's just in Europe or you're getting down into the Antarctic area. But it's high on luxury, high on inclusive, and it's pretty cool to get into a submarine.
All right, Lionel, differentiating differences.
Yep. So for Azamara, my CEO came up with this term. It's a lot like the alphabet, LMN. Longer stays, more overnights, and night touring. With more time in port, you can really connect with that destination in a way that you can't typically do on an ocean ship. So that's something that makes us unique. Another fact about our product is that we were able to trademark the term destination immersion. And we're only able to do that because we're able to prove that we spend more time in port than any other cruise brand out there today, with 81% of the time spent on an Azamara voyage, you're spending it in port. So I know percentages can be hard to figure out, but think about an average cruise of 10 nights. That means 8 days are dedicated to that destination or to that port that you're visiting. And another fun fact that I think you might appreciate when it comes to cruising, because I remember being with Royal Caribbean as long as I have, I've been on mass market brands, and you're beating the clock to get back on the ship before it sets sail. So with Azamara, half of our stops have a departure of 8 p.m. or later. That means you don't have to rush back to the ship. That means you can have dinner in port. And with some of our stays even being overnights, that means you could actually spend the night in port. And I have a really wonderful photo that I started my presentation with, was of the wine region of Bordeaux at sunrise. Why? Because you could actually spend one night, if you want to, out of the 3 days, 2 nights that we spend in Bordeaux, you could wake up at a chateau in Bordeaux and have that as your morning wake-up call instead of on the cruise ship. So another differentiator with us is how we deliver destinations. We started this concept called country-intensive cruising. What that means is that the bulk of that voyage is dedicated to one country. So imagine if you wanted to see Israel, for example. Most cruise lines in Israel won't give you 5 days in Israel, but Azamara has 5 full days in Israel where you can actually overnight in port. And then another differentiator that I'll close with is we introduced this concept, or I don't know, I can't say Azamara did this, but it is something that sets us apart, is that we have created an Amazing evening. It's a nighttime shore excursion in the heart of the city that we provide for you as part of your cruise fare, so you could go out at night with an escorted tour and take in some culture and try some food and try some local drink. And this happens on every voyage, 7 nights or longer. And we call it an Amazing evening.
All right, thank you. So you all gave us some very interesting and unique differentiating differences. Why would they choose you? What makes it unique and interesting? Or how can we kind of focus to why Silversea, why Crystal, why Ama, why Scenic, why Azamara? What is it about you? But now, this is kind of the pitch, right? Why choose you? So you gave the guest to staff ratio, you gave the size of the ship, you gave the experience, but there's more. You know there is, we know there is, and I'm certain that everybody here knows there is. There's more about the experience, and I know that you want to share it. So why choose you? All right. So, John, will you start us off a little bit?
Well, we have beautiful suites, but
Yeah. I see that.
meanwhile, like, okay, what's but it's really, the experiences, and I'm going to talk a little bit about expedition. We have classic and expedition. And one of the things is, you don't know, especially on an expedition cruise, what's going to be happening the next day, or the next morning, or the next minute. You don't know. I'm going to give you a quick little example of this. I went to the Arctic, and by the way, it was one of the best vacations I ever took. Really, truly amazing. The best way to describe most expedition cruising is 99% of the places you cannot buy a t-shirt anywhere.
Well said. Well said.
Okay, but just to give you an idea of expedition, on the Scenic cruise I went on, different. First of all, you fly into Lionel, and one of the first things you notice across the bay is the Doomsday Vault. Okay. For those of you that do not know what the Doomsday Vault is, that contains every sleep known to mankind in case of global catastrophe. So the scientists have deemed this the safest place on the planet as far as I'm concerned. So I looked around and I said to Joanne, I said, this might be some of the cheapest real estate at the moment, but one day it could be the most expensive, But it's true. But anyway, but on this particular cruise, like every day you have choices of what you want to do, different levels of expedition cruising. But one day we were supposed to be doing a hike in the morning, and the captain came on and said he spotted polar bears across the ice. So he said, we're going to go, the ship is an ice-rated hull. We went straight across the ice, which was amazing. There happened to be a dead whale on the other side, which we were sure died naturally. As one of the guides said, it's about 150 years old in human terms. But there was 3 polar bears eating the dead whale. And we were probably within 25 feet of this. And this is amazing. Now we're on the ship, and I have to admit, we have a little champagne with us, It's Silversea.
Toasting the whale.
It was an Irish wake. So, anyway, with that close to it, and again, this is these expedition ships that can do this. And finally, one of the polar bears gets up, and he must have been eating all day. His stomach was like hitting the ground. And he walked about 10 feet. And again, we're this close, and he looked back, and you knew what he was thinking. Should I take another bite or shouldn't I? But again, we're that close. And that really is one of those differences that the smaller ships really can get you to what you really want to see.
I love it. That's going to be a question later, so you're not allowed to tell the same story.
Okay, I got this.
I know you.
Oh yeah, all that's included with his brand too.
All of that, yeah.
You got your parka though on that trip, didn't you?
Yes, on the polar regions, you do get a parka, and I do have a quick little parka story. But anyway, now, this is kind of, I looked at the parka the last day of the voyage, and now you're in Toronto, 3 flights, it's 20 hours to get home, and I said, okay, this is going to be another Irish sweater. And when I say that, I bought a sweater in Ireland for 20 years ago, and it hung in the closet for 15 years.
Don't knock it in Florida.
It hung in the closet for 15 years and still making the Salvation Army. And all I said, I'm going to drag this parka through the airport, 3 different flights, and it's going to wind up at the Salvation Army. But with that being said, I have to tell you, in a lot of the local little towns, like in Lionel and Ushuaia, you wind up with you see a lot of the locals wearing Silversea parkas because we do not recycle the parkas, we give them to the locals. So you can be in some, they're not all not past Silversea yet, but you're going to go to some of these towns and it's going to look
Man, they like Silversea.
I love it. And Monique, who does not eat steak dinners, but would buy steak.
I would buy a steak dinner if we're talking charters on that plane day.
During the whale story, your face was quite hilarious.
I know, I wear everything right there.
I love it, I love it. So will you tell us why Crystal?
Absolutely. As you guys know, by now I've got 4 different experiences. And when we're talking about the expedition aspect, a lot of what John said I will duplicate. Granted, our ship will be brand new coming in August of next year, so she will hit the water at that time. It is really coming down to, it's a mindset. And I think Jen explained it very well too about, luxury, that term, what does that really mean? It means something different to everybody. So all we can do sitting up here is to basically tell you what makes our brand overall to the public appealing. Thank you. And with Crystal, it is that personalized service. It is as though when you're traveling, you are traveling with that extended family. John mentioned about, they'll know that that martini is going to be waiting for you. We don't take the 3 days. I think it's 24 hours on Crystal. I'm just saying. I'm just saying 24 hours.
So
they know how I like my martini.
We want to make sure what brand of liquor you like.
Don't start backpedaling here. Okay, don't backpedal. But it is that small, intimate service. We partner with Nobu Matsuhitsu. We are his only seagoing concept. And if you're not familiar with him, he's got famous restaurants all over the world. He's also now getting into hotels. But when you go to his restaurant, it's a Peruvian-Japanese cuisine, and then sushi as well. So we have his restaurants on our ship. Everything is done in an intimate setting. It is those little details. And I think that all of us, as we sell a luxury brand to you, deliver that in some fashion. Our food is spectacular. I am a total food fiend, and I'm very picky on what I eat. I don't eat whale. And we'll talk about this stuff. And it's the choices. We really talk about not just now that we offer choices across different types of experience and mode of travel, but we offer choices as to what excursions. We offer excursions inclusive on our river, our yacht, our expedition. A whole nother concept why we don't offer it on our 2 ocean ships, which we can talk about later because of time. But what do you want to do during the day? You know, you don't have to worry about what you're spending, what you're not spending. It's going to be included in that. We have all of our programs during the day on the ship. Everything is included. Our lectures, we've got sea days, and you've got 2 to 3 lectures. So if you want to become educated when you're on the cruise, you want to immerse yourself in the destination and those experiences, you can. If you want to go to the spa, you can do that. If you want to do fine shopping, you can do that as well. You have a plethora of restaurants to choose from in the evening. You can have in-room dining, in-suite service, 24 hours a day. If you want something more of an intimate nature, we have the yacht. So it really comes down to that personal touch that Crystal provides, bringing you into the Crystal family. We have guests that over 75%, once they're on the ships, will do a rebooking to book a future Crystal cruise, because that is how high quality of our service is, and the food and the entertainment. But it's that satisfaction that our guests are getting, and they want to come back. They haven't even finished what they're doing, and they're coming back. We've got guests that live year-round on our ships. So all I can do is sit here and tell you what makes Crystal special. Our rooms are spectacular. The yacht, the expedition, the river are all suite accommodations. But here's where the ocean's a little special. We offer ocean views, verandas, and suites on our ocean ships. We don't have inside rooms, but we're offering voyages of a shorter nature, some very convenient, which we'll talk about a little bit with destinations, but I've got Caribbean voyages that are 7 days, and we're talking luxury inclusive, starting less than $1,700 per person. So it's an entry level for you guys to sample luxury on Crystal. See if it's your cup of tea. Sometimes it's not. We've got guests that go back to what they were on before and says, you know, all that stuff I don't need. But a lot of people, once you have it, you don't miss what you've never had. You've ever heard that, right? Just like I was saying, you don't need a butler. Now I just can't live without the butlers. Oh my goodness gracious, you know, they're bringing me my tea in the morning. So what you never had, you don't miss, but once you've had it, then you can actually gauge whether it's for you or not. And then your advisors at Roseborough can help fit you with the perfect experience that Crystal offers and have you sail with us someday soon. Thank you.
Sebastian, why you? Why
you?
Well, first of all, because we don't have people who try us and go somewhere back. Second, the martini will be ready even before you embark.
So it'll be warm on his ship, it'll be cold.
The air conditioning works very well. Why us? Well, I mean, I think my 2 colleagues, said very valid points, and we all know food is an important thing. We're excellent at what we do with food, and we all know. It's the same all across the board here. You know, if somebody wants to eat, you will not be starving on a ship. Whether you go with Silversea, with anybody, you will not. You will be able to lose weight if you want to, but you never.
We have gyms, right?
Well, that's why we have a wellness post for that. Because everybody talks about the food. The food is very important, and I think what is important there, we accommodate every dietary requests. And that's something nowadays that is very important. We were talking about luxury food. We are member of the chaîne des rôtisseurs. The chaîne des rôtisseurs might sound a little odd, but the good thing for me is that it's a French word. So if I say it in American, it's the chaîne des rôtisseurs.
Say it your way.
It's the oldest culinary association in the world. Okay, it was created in 1248, and it was created to show where the best tables were in the Kingdom of France at that time. Disappeared over the French Revolution because everything that was related to royalty had to disappear. Was recreated in 1950, and we are a member of that. We have menus on board that are developed with chefs from the Chaîne des Rôtisseurs. And we're extremely proud of it. We have multiple dining venues. We go up to 4 dining venues on the Alma Magna, which is unique in Europe. No other ship has that on any river. But of course, the food is not everything. I was talking about our wellness program. We have a wellness host on board because I've been talking to you, and we've been talking to you about the different excursions that we have. Of course, we have excursions, but we all know when you've been traveling for 4 days and you've been discovering, because when you go on the river cruise, you want to see everything. What is the river cruise about? Sorry, you won't be at sea. You will be able to discover the inside of the land. We will really try to have you discover what you see. Where you are. If you have the opportunity to be for 24 hours in Vienna, you don't want to spend 18 hours on the ship. You want to discover the city. You want to go to a Viennese concert. Go to the Panthère Park where you have the oldest Ferris wheel in the world. That's what you want to see. You want to see the Belvedere Museum. You're in Paris. You will want to see, I assume, the Eiffel Tower. And the Eiffel Tower is just in front of the ship. So you want to experience the land, but sometimes you don't want. You will just want to relax after 4 days. You've been out the entire morning, the entire afternoon. Well, you will have your wellness host who will be here in the morning to do a stretching class, and we were talking about this, champagne yoga.
That's a yoga.
Just the name of it motivates everybody to go to this class. And it is considered wellness. And that's what's important is, why us? Because we try to give you a vast array of choices. And also, not only during the cruise. What I think is very important with AmaWaterways, we offer pre- and post-cruise extension. And your cruise manager will be there with you from the day 1 of the pre-extension until the last day of the post-extension. And this, I believe, is very, very important to know, for you to know that you will have a point of contact that you know, because he's been or she has been with you for 14 days, and you know that you can refer to this person. And that's very comforting when you're in areas that you don't necessarily know, with languages that you don't necessarily speak. I tried to make it shorter.
Good job. Oh, this slide's very long, I'm sorry.
We'll forgive you. He didn't know. Yeah.
I didn't know.
It's funny, when you like the champagne yoga, that idea of yoga and champagne, that's the way to go. It's sort of like red wine being a food group. Yeah, I like the way you think. When I think about the river cruising and what it is that Scenic and Emerald sort of bring to the table, and when we look at things like river cruising, the Rhine, Main, Danube, or wherever it is going ashore and the experiences, there's no question it is about the food. We all need to be fed and watered at some point in time, but I think it's also about the companionship and the people that you're traveling with. Knowing that the other people on board, the other 148 people that are going to be on board with you, are thinking like you do. They want the experiences like you do. They're into food. They want to go out and go ashore. So I think it's really traveling with like-minded individuals. It's having cruise directors and people on board who know what they're doing, who can give you some information. And like individuals like you, Sebastien, that's what you've done all your life. These are things you know and you've done, and you can anticipate issues with people. So I think it's not only the people you're traveling with, but it's the crew and the folks on board the ship. I spent 17 years of my life living and working on cruise ships. And by the way, I was a shore ex-manager on Silver Cloud for the longest period of time. And it really is the crew that can make a difference. But I will tell you that on any of the vessels that we work with, you're not going to get green people this is their first job ever working on an ocean ship or a river cruise. And that's a really big difference with your crew. And you really need to know and understand that. It is not their first gig. They could never get a job on Crystal or Ama or Azamara or Silversea or with us. So the people in the crew that you have on board are really experienced. It ain't their first ride to the rodeo. They've been through all of this stuff before, so it's really important, I think, that you know that. I think the other thing that makes the difference with Scenic and Emerald is it's not just the personnel and the people on board. You know, it's the places that we travel to, the Rhine, the Main, and the Danube. It's the Porto in Portugal, the rivers in Portugal. It's going to Russia, and then possibly even over to Cambodia or the Irrawaddy. You know, these are places that are a little bit foreign. That's why we rely on our travel agent partners to make sure we get you on the right ships with the right guest-to-passenger ratio, with the right food, with the ability to accommodate whatever it is that your special needs are, you know, in that particular journey. But don't forget, as you look at Europe, Rhine, Main, Danube, I get it, but don't forget the Christmas markets and springtime in Holland and Belgium. There's so many other options that are outside of that little core thing that many of us think of, you know, in that June, July, and August period of time. Itineraries from 7 to 21 days, so for those that want to stay longer or attaching to back, that's something that can be done and coordinated, you know, really fairly easily. So if I was to sum it up and say Scenic and Emerald, you know, what exactly are the differences or the things that we do really well? I believe it's the companionship, I believe it's the people, I believe it's the organization of what is done. I believe it's the style and it's the energy on board the ships, because they are all a little bit different. And it is the people that play into that. It's the places that you're going to. And it's just really critical, again, to come that full circle to that point, to get you on the right ship at the right time. And that's what our guys in blue here are so darn good at, because we can express as much differentiation as we'd like here, but they've all been out and experienced it, so they are able to point you in the right direction, and I think that's pretty critical.
Lionel?
All right, so
Azamara.
I can see what my next slide is going to be, so I already talked about country intensives as one reason. Another reason is that we're also more inclusive, so we include more on our voyages. We don't call ourselves all-inclusive, because there's 3 things that I don't include. I think that my list is smaller when I tell you what I don't include. I don't include airfare in my standard pricing, I don't include shore excursions in my standard pricing, and I don't include internet in my standard pricing. However, from time to time, we do have promotions and incentives to include some of those non-inclusions. But what most people care about, correct me if I'm wrong, are drinks and tips. Those are included, and also our As Amazing Evening. Another reason why you would choose me is that we are the cruise line for the landlubber. So I would love to ask you a question. Have any of you not been on a cruise? Raise your hand if you've not been on a cruise. All right? All of you are cruisers, which is awesome. But a fun fact that we found is that 25% of our guests have actually never set foot on an ocean ship before. Their first cruise ever was with Azamara. Another reason why to choose Azamara is that we're part of the Royal Caribbean family. So if you have a loyalty to Royal, so let's say you're Diamond with Royal Caribbean or Platinum or better with Royal Caribbean, we honor your loyalty status with Royal Caribbean on Azamara, even on your first voyage. And then I think the best benefit is with Celebrity, because your Celebrity number is your Azamara number. So that means that when you cruise with Azamara, you're actually building loyalty toward 2 brands instead of just 1. And last but not least, the other reason to choose us, since you are a landlubber, or like I mentioned earlier, we're the cruise line for the landlubber. We have partnered with some fantastic partners that deliver land in unique ways. For example, with Mikado to deliver African safaris down in South Africa, to Cox and Kings to do Machu Picchu and Iguazu Falls, and then even Cox and Kings has added our partnership with a program called City Stays, where now you could do land extensions in the destination before or after your cruise. And last but not least, we also have a partnership with Orient Express to deliver rail segments through the interior parts of Europe to go from Venice to London or London to Venice before or after your voyage. So I would say those would be some of the reasons why you should choose us.
Very good. Thank you. All right. So we touched a little bit on favorite destinations, but I think that the reason somebody typically will go on a cruise or a river cruise is not necessarily to experience the cruise. It's to experience the destination. So will you tell us a little bit about maybe your favorite experience on board your brand, but in a destination? John.
Okay. Well, one thing is with We're back to the Arctic again.
There's the parka.
There's the parka, yes. But again, throughout, on the ice. Well, I'm going to do two.
That's
quick, okay. But one of the Arctic things, again, we're Silversea, so we really do go above and beyond. On this particular Arctic cruise, we're out on a Zodiac, and again, 5th day of no internet service, by the way, because you're literally at the top of the world. It doesn't exist. There has to be people to pay for something. There's no people. So, just park. So with that being said, we come across we're out watching a caving of the glacier, beautiful, and another Zodiac pulls up to us. And there was a Zodiac with the bubblers on it, with the champagne and the chocolate-covered strawberries, and there we are, like literally at the brink of civilization, at the end of civilization almost. And there we are, like, oh, this isn't bad,
Was there yoga on the iceberg then?
No, there was not.
See?
There was no yoga on the iceberg. But the butler did draw me a bath on the way back.
There you go.
It's all good. But it's amazing, though, because of the size of the ships, how stuff you just don't realize. I was on a Vietnam cruise a few months ago, and we were in Saigon. And literally the ship is 10-minute walk from the center of Saigon, or we do have free transfers right into the center if you wanted a 2-minute bus ride versus a 10-minute walk. And it was amazing to be so in the center of everything, because again, we're able to do that. And I didn't realize how special that was in Vietnam until we met another group of guests from a mega ship line. And long story short, it took them 2.5 hours to get to the same destination that we could walk to in 10 minutes. And with that, we were able to go back and forth to the ship. It really gives you a lot more freedom when you're in these ports. Like in Vietnam, I have to admit, some of the ladies were buying every knockoff they could, but so we had to go back and forth to the ship a couple of times. Shopping. But again, it enables you so much more freedom that you don't get when you're in other environments. But again, the size of the ship is a tremendous difference.
Monique.
Okay, this is going to look like a very strange slide because it's supposed to be what's my favorite destination. And you're like, well, what are we looking at? Well, the Endeavor, we'll be doing Antarctica, and I know that will be on the list for there. But because I have the different ships, I have had the pleasure of going on each of the experiences. So again, it goes back to that whole choice aspect and how you want to travel, where you want to go. And it's funny with the ocean ships, sometimes the best destination does not have to be the most furthest reaching and the most exotic locations. I've done some amazing itineraries with the product doing simply Italy and going along the Amalfi Coast and going into Positano and going up to Ravello at the top of the mountain and having lunch there. It could be the simple things. It doesn't have to be doing these crazy itineraries and scaling rocks, etc. Although I will be on the Endeavor doing the Antarctic at some point. The river, Vienna. If you haven't ever done Vienna, absolutely the most wonderful city in my opinion. We do very similar to what Azamara does with your Azamara evenings. Each of our river ships, each itinerary that you do, we take you to some very exclusive evening event. And when we're in Vienna, we do a private Belvedere concert at the Belvedere Palace, a private concert. And I'm a total classical music geek. So I was with the company when we went, and I'm like the first in line. I sit right up at the front. I got my little camera, and they're like, look at her. She doesn't ever get excited about anything, And here I am just like thrilled to watch this private concert. And the acoustics in the palace are just amazing. And you walk through the museum, and you see the Kiss. And again, it's just the river ship. So there's less than 140 of us that were on board, because that was on our larger vessel. And sometimes it could be as simple as the Esprit. I got off the Esprit 4 weeks ago, and we had her hosting down in the Caribbean out of St. Martin. Now, I'm a Florida-born girl, so I do love the 90-degree weather and the 100% humidity, and I like my beaches, and I love the heat and the rain and everything else. Luckily, we didn't have all that when I was down in St. Martin. We did have the beaches and the beautiful water. But this itinerary went down to St. Bart's. St. Bart's is one of my favorite islands down in the Caribbean itself. We went to Mosquito Island, which is Richard Branson's private island. And it's absolutely amazing. We have it set up as a beach day. All the cruise lines talk about their private islands, right? This literally is a private island owned by a millionaire. and billionaire probably at this point. He's a billionaire at this point, I think. And everything is just set up perfect, and it's just for the 62 guests that are on board. Champagne, caviar, lobster, crab legs, the whole bit. So again, I couldn't just pick one, so I threw all my ships up there, and I took the liberty of telling you of different locations. But obviously, with everywhere we get to travel in our jobs, sometimes we always reach for the farthest destinations, and sometimes the most special, the most magical, does not have to be all the way across the world. It could be 3 hours away, or it could be that 20-hour flight, you know, to Australia or, you know, Tahiti. But it's what pulls at your heartstrings. But I think we can all deliver that, you know, depending on what your needs are. So those are my favorite places that I've gone.
Thank you. Sebastian, what's your favorite place? Your favorite?
The golf course.
Really? I did figure that out when you told me your golf was. That's where you'd be. So.
And I really have my golf bag.
Oh, you do?
I guess so. And I was like, no, grab brochures.
Yeah, and I agree, we'll continue. And of course, you have the golf image behind this, because this is something that we've created. So we have, I just talked about the AmaMagna a few minutes ago. So AmaMagna is completely different. And while I have not been on it with guests, I've been on it. I mean, it's been launched 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And the AmaMagna is completely different from any other river cruise ship, because she is like all, or most others, she is 443 feet long, which is 135 meters, but she's not 38 feet wide like most of the ships are. I mean, I know you guys have the Mozart, which is much wider than that.
She's a double wide.
And our Magna is even a little bit wider than the Mozart. So 72 feet wide doesn't mean that we could, I mean, basically it's like having two ships together. It doesn't mean that we have 2 times the amount of guests. I mean, we have, on our regular ships, we have 156 guests. On the AmaMagna, we have 196. So, which is why we have a lot of space on the Magna. That's a brand new experience, and that's why we needed to create something new, and we created a golf program. We've been working on this golf program for a very long time, and the golf courses, when you ask me what's my favorite experience, that's one of them, is going on these golf courses in Hungary, in Slovakia, in Austria, and in Germany.
That's cool.
They're all from, they're all from the European PGA Tour. They all have something very specific. I mean, do we have golfers in the room? Don't be scared, that's okay.
You're allowed to like golf. You're on the golf
I
club.
live on the 4th fairway.
So just for you, sir. We have, there's this one in Slovakia, just an hour north from Bratislava. You have the longest par 5. Actually, we should consider it par 6 because it's 787 yards long. That's,
In Bratislava?
yeah, just north of Bratislava.
See, you're learning.
Come with the cruise manager on the cruise.
How about the senior team?
Sorry?
Where's senior D?
Is it shorter?
Senior T is 744. You win 40 yards, but you still have to hit big. But it's, as Monique just mentioned, I mean, what is special? I mean, it can be the very simple things. I mean, of course, we can talk about caviar and God knows what. I mean, my favorite experience when I'm not on a golf course, when I'm with my guests, is just seeing them. And I'm sorry, I know you love the heat, but when you're on a Christmas time cruise, you finish in Switzerland and you take the guests to Zurich, and when I take my guests for an orientation walk, and I take them to the train station. And when you don't tell them why, and people look at you like, why the heck is he taking us to a train station? Because you have 2 Christmas markets in Zurich. You have one that is at the Opera, and you have one inside the train station. And there, so you will arrive, and you must imagine, you're a Swiss, you travel by train. I mean, they go everywhere by train. I mean, Zurich to Lucerne is like an hour. You can do everything, but you just arrive there. You have this little village inside the train station with a 100-foot tree. And the 100-foot tree is decorated with 6,000 Swarovski crystals. And you just walk there and you smell the raclette cheese, you know, what you shake. And you have the mulled wine. And you have the tartiflette. So tartiflette is something that is also very specific, and you will think I'm only talking about food, but when you have these 15,000 calories in your hand,
worth every bite. It's worth every bite.
People love it, and that's what you can. It changes. You have tons of different experiences. When you go, you were talking about tulip time cruises. I mean, you go to Keukenhof, and then you have this little mini town basically, where you have 40 gardeners working, and you walk through 5 million bulbs, tulips, and they change that every year. And they garden. You have these 40 people working all the time. You don't need to go exactly crazy far, etc. You have beautiful things to do or to see at every corner. You just need to know where they are, and that's why we're here to help you go in there, and that's why they're here as well.
Jennifer.
Me. What did I put up there? Oh, man. What did I put up? Look, I'm leaving to go on a Tanzanian safari on Saturday afternoon. I have a 10-day safari in Tanzania on Saturday, so I gotta tell you, this half of my head has a giraffe in it, and this half has an elephant in it. We're getting ready to go. But you know, when I think about destinations, one that people ask me about all the time, I spent 17 years of my life living and working on cruise ships. I've been in travel all of my life. I've been really blessed to see a tremendous part of the world, and through my life I've seen a lot of cyclical things. John, when you're talking about being on the Silver Cloud and docking right up in London, I get it. When you see exotics like this over in the Mekong Delta, vessels that are specifically built for this part of the world that come into Ho Chi Minh City, when you turn around and you go up into Cambodia and the small towns and villages, and these are experiences that are definitely food, definitely wine related. It's all about experiences, but these are so much more spiritual experiences as well, and these are touching on parts of the world that a lot of people don't get an opportunity to have those experiences in. Your dollar goes very far, I get it, it's a long way around the world, but there's no question at all that we're seeing a lot of things come up in the Mekong and the Mekong Delta. I think Russia is also doing very well. One of my favorites, St. Petersburg to Moscow. If anybody has ever done an itinerary where you've gone and done a Baltic cruise in St. Petersburg, you will really enjoy the St. Petersburg to Moscow segment. Killer vodka, especially at that point from St. Petersburg to Moscow, it's always good. But I have the Egypt and the Nile behind us. You know, many people have had an opportunity to travel to the Nile, or you've gone in by a big cruise ship and maybe gone over to Alexandria. But Egypt is back, and it's back big time. Most of our departures this year were completely sold out. It's an opportunity to get into Cairo, and the hotels we use on a segment of the land program are exquisite. You can leave the house in the Four Seasons. And then you go up and do a week on a river cruise in Egypt and connect with the Egyptian gods and everything else that happened here. And yeah, those are a little bit exotic. It's not the Rhine-Main-Danube. It's not Vienna. You know, it's something a little bit more different and exotic. But I tell you, it's something that a lot of people are gravitating towards, including places like Portugal. Going into Portugal and Porto, and then sailing up the Douro River, very rural, very simple, lots of wineries, and a very different experience than what you're going to find on the standard European. So that's one of the beautiful things I think about this type of travel, is not only do you have a plethora of options to choose from in terms of the vessels and styles that you want to travel in, but now throw some of these destinations into the mix, and the history and the things that really rock your world. And those are some of my favorites, and some of the areas that I'm seeing: Russia, Portugal, Egypt, and certainly the Mekong Delta.
Lionel.
So my favorite experience was, I actually was on board my first Azamara voyage, and I had just started representing Azamara, and I had a chance to do the Greek Isles and Israel. But the most magical moment, the aha, where I realized this is really special, and I want to be really more involved with Azamara, was my time in Santorini. I had been to Santorini twice before, and had to rush back to the ship by 4 o'clock, because that's the time that most ships depart. And if you're familiar with Santorini, you have to tender into Santorini. There are no docks in Santorini. And there's 3 ways up. One is by foot, one is by train, like a little cable car, and the other one is by donkey. And that means those are the only 3 ways down, too. And so my wife and I, we had just recently got engaged, so that's probably what also made this very special, is that I proposed to her in Paris before we did this trip. But that particular day, we went up and rented an ATV and drove around the island. The island of Santorini, if you're not familiar with Santorini, is the cusp or the top of the crater of a volcano. So what you see is called the caldera, all the water around, which is the crater. So we had a chance to not have to be rushed. We explored the island the way we wanted to. We stopped at a little cafe, the black sand beaches, and we had a bite to eat there. I tried to, as she says, not get married because I wanted to jump off of a cliff, which I did successfully because I'm still here. Then we get up to Ia and Fira and we go shopping and exploring, and that's the areas of that you usually see when you see pictures of Greece, of the whitewashed walls and the blue domes, is that area in Santorini. But the moment of the aha was around 5 o'clock when I'm heading back to turn in the ATV. I'm not worried about trying to wait in that line that everyone else is in to get off the ship. I'm worried about finding a place to eat to watch the sunset. And so we find a place to eat. We're overlooking the caldera. All the ships are sailing away. She opens up her bottle of wine. I have a Mythos beer. The beer in Athens or in Greece is fantastic. I like their Mythos beer. And we watched the sunset, and we took the last train down. We happened to be the only guests or passengers on the train car, on the cable car down. And then we take the tender back onto the vessel, and our vacation continued. But that really was the aha moment, and it has stayed with me as one of my most beautiful moments with Azamara.
Notice it wasn't the engagement. I gotta get into it. It's like Santorini.
You did get engaged in Paris.
Yeah, they're gonna try to jump off a cliff too. Just saying.
My friends were like, really? Why would you do that? Now you've messed it up for all of us. I was supposed to top that engagement. But
I love it. Well done.
So I got to ask a lot of questions, and many of them were questions that we had emailed in or that were asked of us to ask you, but now you're really on the spot. What do you want to know? Does anybody have questions from the audience?
Yes.
All right, I have a question, but first off, this was marvelous. Thank you all for sharing. So we have travel companions who been on, we call it Brand X. They've done Viking. They've been trying to get us to do a Viking river cruise. Help us, what differentiates you from that?
That's a perfect question. I'm sorry for interrupting before any of you jump on that.
Yeah.
But that is the number one thing that brings people into the office. They come
Viking.
with the brochure.
Yeah.
So that is the number one question we're asked as well as travel advisors.
I have a great analogy. This is the best, look, here's the thing, you can't lose on a river cruise, whatever you do, and frankly in my world it's pretty hard to lose when you travel, but here's the analogy I'll give you. Well, okay, you're not so sure about a whole lot when it comes to me here, so when I look at Viking river cruises, the analogy I've given some of my colleagues is this. I've said if we were going to go out for an Italian dinner tonight and we went to Carrabba's or Olive Garden and we sat down and had a dinner, it would be perfectly fine. There'd be nothing wrong with it. We'd be well fed. We'd be well watered. The price point is nice. We'd have had a lovely experience. However, there's probably a cool little Italian restaurant down the street, and that would be something like a little bit like Azamara and what we are, not quite so big with 70 ships. Like a little Italian restaurant that has a little chalkboard menu out front. The chef may be the waiter, and the guy working in the kitchen and the owner. It's a little more different. It's a little bit more boutique-y type of experience. I just don't feel that you can really go very wrong in a vacation. I think you can probably go righter, but I'm not sure that you can absolutely go wrong. So the closest thing I can be righter. Yeah, you can be more right. I don't know if that's the right word. There may be other choices where your money could be spent and you could get a bigger bang for your buck, and that's what these guys know about. But that's the closest analogy that I've ever been able to. It's great, it's fine, there ain't nothing wrong with it at all, but there's other choices.
Let me say something, and it's something that we've kind of echoed throughout the presentation about, it's about how you like to travel.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're working through your travel partner, whomever it may be at Roseborough, they're going to ask what we call in the industry qualifying questions. What have you done before? What did you like on the last trip you did? What did you not like on this trip that you did? Are you a foodie? Are you a very active person? Do you like, do you need that higher level of touch service with the butlers? And based on what your feedback is and your answers to your advisors, they're very versed in all of the brands out there. Many of them have done the different products out there. So they're going to be able to better pair you versus saying how we're different than Viking. I mean, frankly, the easy answer is we're much more inclusive. I think most of us up here are way more inclusive than what Viking offers. I think all of us are a little bit more intimate as far as how many guests are on a vessel versus how much staff is on a vessel. But again, if those things, unlike, I'm not as, some people won't come back to Crystal. Most of them do, frankly. However, you may have been on something else that you said, this is perfectly fine for me. I like this product, and you're going to go back to that. So I think it really comes down to how you like to travel, and to best be qualified for that. Talk to your advisor. Tell them this is the trips that were my favorites in the past. These are the things I didn't like on other ways that I've traveled. And they'll be able to tell you if Viking is going to be the right fit for you.
The best choice.
Whether that's going to be the best choice. And they have their ocean product, which is different from their river as well, but still very different than the brands up here also. So you really need to depend on your advisor for that.
And I hope you got out of that nobody said that it's a bad choice. So at the end of the day, it's
not at all.
It's really what's the style that you prefer to travel
It's all
in.
about you.
Or what are you looking to get out of it? And sadly, you're not the expert because you haven't done river. So that's what I always
You
tell.
haven't done the brand.
And that's why I always tell consumers like yourselves, use a travel advisor, use a travel professional. They are your experts. And at the end of the day, they have your best interest in mind.
They're going to be non-biased. And
They know
I call them value interpreters. Their job is to interpret the best use of your travel dollars.
There's that word value.
So you give them what you're looking to get out of your vacation, and then they in turn provide to you what are your best options and choices. It may not even be what you came in asking for.
Correct.
It could be something completely different, but that's why you go to them. If not, you could just go online and do it yourself. But the reality is, if you go to a professional, you're going to get the best use of your travel dollars and time.
And you will really get that because it's also in their interest that you come back to them. Because if you're given a wrong advice, you will for sure not go see that person again. So I guess the entire table here and all the brands that are represented really rely on the travel partners because that's really what they are. I mean, basically, if they're doing good, we're doing good, all of us.
Right.
So the idea is to give you folks a memorable experience from the moment you enter Roseborough Travel until the moment you come back from your vacation. And as some mentioned, you might have already booked the next one on the ship already. But then you will talk to your travel advisor again and say, by the way, make sure that this works like it did this time.
Right. I mean, at Crystal, we have very little direct business. I mean, if somebody calls, of course, we're going to take the order, as we say, but we're not going to be your advocate through the whole process to make sure that this hasn't changed or that there's not a better deal, etc. And I can't speak for all brands in the industry, but with Crystal Cruises, there's not a single reason to go direct. And I work for Crystal. They're the ones that write my paychecks, not Roseborough, not somebody else. And there's not a reason to book my brand direct. Whatever you're going to get direct, Roseborough is going to be able to give you plus. And what I mean by that is they're affiliated with industry associations that give extra perks on board, whether it be onboard credits, whether it be hosted events on board, complimentary shore excursions for an experience that doesn't include all the shore excursions, or they customize something. That is not something my direct team can give you. So really there is not a reason not to use your advisors, especially when selling, buying into my brand.
Same.
I think that all of your answers were really wonderful in response to the question, and I think the thing that I hope all of you realize with the joking that's happened up here is our reps, our representatives within our industry, they go to trade shows all the time together. They've become friends. They see each other throughout the year several times. So they don't... It's easy for them to kind of stand for their brand, but also be able to differentiate and say, maybe my competitor's brand is better for you, and they understand that. But at the same time, they know why their brand is the perfect one for the perfect you, for whichever one of you it does fit for. So that's a great question. It is a hard-hitting question, but it's wonderful. And it is what we do. It is the way that we will sit down with you at Roseborough and say, okay, well, these are the differences. What's most important to you when you go on this trip? Is this important or is that important?
If I can say one other thing too, although I don't think this really applies to any of us up here, and I may have shared this with you before, but you get what you pay for. And my mother used to say to me, pay peanuts, get monkeys. And if you're reading something and it's $1,200 for a week, you're going to get $1,200 for a week for you. We keep coming back to that word value over and over again, and that's what is really critical. And I think that's one of the things that all of us really bring here. We've had a long association with you. Our companies have all been around a long time, and it's a matter of getting value for your dollar. And I think that's what everybody's just looking for.
Any other questions? Yes, Greg.
If I could put you all on the spot for a second. As travelers, the destinations, we've never been there. You've all been there. So each of you tell me what would you recommend as your favorite place to go?
Favorite place? Now, I think we probably all have a lot of favorite places.
Yeah.
So-
Oh my gosh, my
Let's
head
trip,
just
you
blew up.
have to go there.
Okay, you want to know, one of mine, I have to say, I love the expedition cruising. I think expedition because I've done two. I've done Arctic and I've done the Galapagos. The Galapagos, you wake up every morning, it's something new, it's something so out of the ordinary. As a matter of fact, I'm happy to say Amanda's going to the Galapagos in 2 months on us. So, and there's another couple of back there that are going on the Galapagos with us. But again, it is a spectacular destination, and it's also relatively easy to get to. It's 3.5 hours Miami to Quito, 2 nights in Quito, and then an hour over the Galapagos. It's really, but you don't know what you're going to see. Every day is very different. I went snorkeling one day, and they tell you, don't get near don't touch the animals, you can't touch. And a little baby sea lion came right up to my mask and looking right in my, and meanwhile, all I'm thinking is,
Don't touch him.
No, I'm thinking, where's Mama? Where's Mama? But it's amazing. It's one of those things that, when you're young enough to still do it, and when I say a little bit about, if you can walk around the mall without sitting down and climb a flight of stairs, you can do an expedition show. So that, that's a good way to put it, but you get to see so much stuff that you might not have the opportunity in the future to see.
So Galapagos expedition.
Correct.
Monique.
God, that is really a hard question.
Got it.
I mean, I've done some really exotic destinations, and as far as you're asking what my favorite is, I hate to be boring, folks. I love the Mediterranean, Greece, but I mean, going along the Amalfi Coast, I am very much into culture and history. I like good food. I like good wine when I'm not working, and when I'm not working. No wine when I'm working.
The Greece islands are like beaches, right? But then there's also the Greek.
You have a little bit of everything along the coast. You have your beaches. You've got the history. You've got beautiful architecture. There's that friendliness. You go around Stromboli at night, and you have this volcano that actively erupts, almost like it's on a schedule. So, I mean, for me, of all the different places I've been, some exciting, some not so exciting, the Med is a go-to. And I could go there every other year just because there's always something beautiful and new to see.
That's not boring. So many people come to us and it's their first time.
But, we're all talking like Antarctica and the Galapagos, which, oh my God, if I went there, I would take all the animals home with me. I wouldn't eat them, I would just take them all home with me. So, but, and I'm like, oh gosh, I'm number 2, I'm going to say the Mediterranean. But it's true, some other people have been there, but it's just a spectacular, magical place.
But you like the Greece area?
I like Greece. I really do like the coast of Italy, though. Going down into Naples, you go to Capri, you could do the Blue Grotto, you take the little trolley up to the Blue Grotto. They have great little Italian restaurants, the best Italian wine you ever want to have, and fresh seafood, and all these little fisher towns, so you can be as fancy or as simple as you want. And it's just absolutely amazing.
I have to agree with him. There's nothing bad about the Med, whatever part of it.
Yeah, no matter what. I mean, Greece is amazing. It's a whole different culture. I mean, I just happen to like the architecture and the cultural history of the Mediterranean.
Sebastian.
Yeah, I will continue in that direction because I believe what is my favorite place? I have quite a few.
Just
The
one.
golf. Well, it's not the golf.
Just one, Sebastian.
But for example, what on that bit, because we have to talk about the new destinations, and we try to evolve all the time, and we are going back to Istanbul. For me, Istanbul is an absolutely incredible place. It's, I mean, and we will now, I mean, we will fly there as a pre or post extension, and the entire cruise.
Wait, are you giving us an inside scoop?
Yes. We used to go there, but I mean, when the coup happened, and I can tell you because I was about to start the cruise 6 hours later when the coup happened, so I had to call everybody. I'm like, look at the news on TV, and I saw the tanks coming, and I was in Vienna at that time. And I see the tanks, and I thought it was a movie at 11:20 p.m. I'm like, what's this? And then, oh no, that's CNN. And so, of course, we had to look at all the situation, but the town itself, the people themselves, are so incredible. The history, you're talking about history, you have the Roman, you have the
Can I change my answer?
the
I do
Roman
like
wall.
Istanbul too.
The Roman wall that is there is absolutely incredible. And after that, it's not only about Istanbul itself, it's this entire cruise on the lower Danube, because then basically if you start in Istanbul, you will go to Bucharest and then embark the ship in Georgia. And there you will see a face of Europe that you have no idea of. Because you're not in the Eurozone, you're not in the Paris, Italy, Germany, Switzerland, it's different. And I did not say it's not as beautiful, it is completely different. I mean, when you go to Belogradchik and you have this Bulgarian fortress of the 12th century built within a rock formation, and you climb up there and you hike there, it's perfect. I mean, so all this area, and I think, what's the best? You will have to do a little bit of your homework. You will need to know what are your interests and what you want to see. But you will find beautiful everywhere. But if you ask me, Istanbul, wait, yeah, amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Sure, best one.
Well, I gotta go with Galapagos because I've been there a number of times, and it's just one of my favorite places in the world. But behind that, I would probably look at Russia, truth be. As much as I enjoyed, I worked on cruise ships for 18 years, so I called into St. Petersburg forever, some of the first ships to ever do that. The first time I had a chance to go a little bit further and sail from St. Petersburg to Moscow, it just blew my mind. Realizing how rural the area was. And the food and the people, and having only ever seen St. Petersburg and Moscow before, suddenly sailing on these rivers and seeing the churches on Kizhi Island where the church is put together with just all the wood pieces, there's no nails in it. There was just something so exquisitely different. And starting in a place like St. Petersburg, that's what, 320 years old, that's it. I mean, it's just really not that old at all. And then sort of progressing a little bit further down the river, and the people and the dukas that you would see, and being exposed to the countryside and how people really lived, and then ending it up in Moscow, which was just kind of mind-blowing on top of that. So I think it was the assault on the senses. It was the opportunity to try and see and do so many different things. But no question for me, that river experience in St. Petersburg ranks up there.
Lionel.
So, I've heard this been said before, that my favorite vacation is my next vacation. And so I would say, you know, in my home, my family, I go on a vacation every year. I don't care how much money is in the bank or not, we're going on a vacation. We need to disconnect and go somewhere. And the world is way too big, and we have this blue book as Americans to pretty much have a ticket to the world. So we should take advantage of that. I know that as Azamara, we have our country intensives, which help set us apart. But I think one of the beautiful things about cruising, which all of us are on some form of water product, is that you get to sample a kaleidoscope of destinations. And even on a given itinerary in the Med, for example, each country, each city, even within those countries, have completely different stories and completely different experiences. So the beauty, for example, my first ever voyage to Europe was with Royal Caribbean, and I did, in 12 nights, I visited about 6 countries. What I came back from that trip was, I realized that I fell in love with Greece, and I wanted to go back to Greece. It's not to say that you should make your first trip Greece only, because maybe there's other things you want to see. But I now can't wait to do a Greek intensive voyage where I get to spend more time and see some of the other islands of Greece that I haven't had a chance to see, like Volos and Thessaloniki and Spetses, which are smaller islands that you probably didn't even know existed.
I have a yacht that I have available
I'm sure
for
you do. So that's why I can't, I don't want to sound repetitive. But the other thing about vacations too, and all of us have the opportunity to travel usually on our own products and sometimes on competing products, but not always with the people we love, right? Sometimes it's with
With each other.
we learn to love each other, but really we would rather have our significant other. And so, for example, last summer I was in Bordeaux. We did a wine and romance voyage. And we did the Douro River and the Garonne River, and I had 3 days in Bordeaux, and I had an overnight in Lisbon, and I had some of the best food in the world and best wines in the world. I didn't have the romance element. So, it's not to say it wasn't a great trip. I had a fantastic time, but there was something missing. So I would say just, wherever you go, you should have a great time as long as you have the right person next to you. And I know you're sitting next to somebody there, so that's my suggestion.
Hope it's the right person.
All right, any other questions?
What's the dress code course?
Dress code.
That's good.
On Silversea, expedition is casual all of the time. On the classic fleet, we have one formal evening, which would be a dark suit or a tuxedo, 3 informal, which is jacket, no tie, and then 3 casual. On that one formal night, if you don't do the one formal night, there are other dining options available. We have up to 8 different dining rooms on the ship.
Okay, so expedition, yacht, river is casual on board. So think country club casual, and obviously for expedition, you're going to be in your dockers and sweaters, and depending on the destination. On ocean, we have what we call black tie optional evenings. So you could have anywhere from 1 to 3 black tie optional evenings. This means you can wear a tuxedo. Ladies, you can wear those 90-pound evening dresses that have all those beads on it if you want to. But we don't require the penguin suits. Gentlemen, you're fine just in a blazer for those evenings. Ladies, we're lucky because we've got pantsuits and cocktail dresses and all the fancy cool outfits out there. But Crystal used to be a much more formal brand. And in 30 years, we've really evolved into what our guests were asking us for. We used to have early and late dining times, very traditional. We've gone to all open dining now as well because it is the choices of you and how you all want to travel. So our ocean ships will have the most formal option, and again, it's still not a required option.
It's also casual for us on the rivers, and there is one evening that is a little more formal. And that's why I said just a little more formal, which is the captain's evening, where I would say it's just use common sense. I mean, you're on vacation, so you're not here to be in a tuxedo the entire time for gentlemen or on a cocktail dress. But when you have the captain's dinner, we do not recommend that you come with short pants and flip-flops, for example.
Your people do that on board for dinner?
But it's, I mean, that's why, you see, that's vacation. So vacation means you should be able to relax all the time.
Scenic and Emerald on our river cruises, casual, comfortable. Same thing, smart casual, be comfortable, khaki shirts, ladies. You want to knock yourself out, put on a great dress, that's absolutely fine. Ocean, excuse me, on the Scenic Eclipse, of course, is an expedition. They're going to be dressing in an expedition, and maybe a parka or two as we get to some of the cold areas, but no need to worry about being too formal.
And Azamara, we're country club casual every day, so there are no formal nights on board. And then, I know we didn't talk about this specifically, but it's open seating, and I think all of us have similar concepts.
Good point.
But it's open seating, so you just eat when you're hungry, where you want to.
With whom?
24 hours
Yeah.
a day.
That open seating is actually kind of a big deal. That's a big change, from way ocean-going ships and things have been over the years. It's a big deal.
Are any of your lines exploring other rivers besides Europe?
Oh, we are. I mean, actually, our lines are already present outside Europe. I mean, of course, Europe is a big focus because that's where you have the highest concentration, but we are also present on the Mekong. I mean, Scenic is present on the Mekong River in Vietnam and Cambodia as well. We are also present on the Chobe River, so that's in northern Botswana, and there you have a lot. I mean, the Chobe River is much smaller, which means that the ship is also much smaller. I mean, we have only 14 cabins, so it's a completely different experience, so 28 guests, with a lot of pre and post possibilities. The newest one being a post extension in Rwanda to go see the silverback gorillas and the so-called golden monkey. So we are present outside, absolutely.
And for us, we have the 5 ships. We are on the Danube, Rhine, Main, and Mosel. We do 7 to 16-day itineraries. Right now, we're in the growth. We just finished those 5 ships. The last 2 just came out in spring of last year. So we own our own shipyards in Germany where we're building all of our new ships going forward. So right now, we have the focus on finishing our expedition ship for next year, a sister ship in the role, and then creating new ocean-going ships that will be 800 passengers. So a larger vessel, still a very small capacity. So for our immediate future, the river is not a new priority for us at the moment. So we'll stay on the rivers that we're at now.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have Myanmar, the Irrawaddy in Burma. Yeah.
And you're in Egypt, right?
And Egypt on the Nile, of course, Russia, as I mentioned, the Mekong. Yeah.
We're exploring.
Yeah, there's a lot of neat stuff, and there's other companies that you know that are also in India on the Ganges.
We'll be there soon.
Yeah, whatever.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Amanda, for doing this.
Thank you. One more question.
My husband is a country boy that likes plain cheeseburgers and just about nothing else.
God, he's a man after my heart.
I like to.
Well, he's married.
Back off.
But I like to sample different, including shark and horse and whatever else.
We did that in Iceland.
Yes. But, so is there, I've already booked for the Christmas markets on Ama. Is there a dining room where I can still try whatever the meal of the day is, the different samples, and he can have his plain cheeseburger?
Absolutely. We have. I mean, in this case, we have on the menu there is. Of course, you will have always per course you have 3 different options. I mean, in general, you will have, let's say, meat, fish, vegetarian option. But there's also what we call always available. And if he wants to have his cheeseburger every day, trust me, he will have a cheeseburger morning, lunch.
Yes. He doesn't like anything fancy.
You know what? When I say man after my own heart, I'm kind of like that. I'm a very simple eater. I was watching your posts from the ship, and I thought, good God, I'd starve to death.
Oh my God, I ate so much.
Here's the thing on any of the ships, particularly on the rivers and the Christmas markets, you'll be able to eat off the menu. You'll have no trouble finding anything to eat at all. No trouble at all.
Never an issue.
One thing I like of our menus is that we highlight a region of the world every day on our menu. So for you, you would love that because you get to try different foods every day. But also, like Sebastien mentioned from Ama, we have an everyday menu with things like shrimp cocktail, New York strip, salmon, grilled chicken.
And many of us, I think, have concepts on board that are just like a grill. Veggie burger, meat burger, turkey burger, chicken burgers, wraps.
Doesn't hurt to mention it ahead of time and put it on your passenger information form, just so when you get on board, your cruise director goes, oh, okay, I know this one's a simple.
He wants 7 burgers.
He wants a burger 24/7.
That's right.
We'll talk after that, and I'll send a message already to the ship.
A cheeseburger. It'll be cold waiting for him, but it'll be there before he gets there.
Cheeseburgers, put it on the bed.
Let me know which type of martini he likes as well.
And that will be warm.
And that'll be warm.
All right, so we have some deals and promotion and prizes to give away, but without further ado, I'd like to give you all a round of applause because you know what Thank you so much. So, really quick, if you'll go down, and I'm not going to start with John right now. I'm going to start with Lionel.
Okay.
Will you tell us your deals and promotions, and brother, are you giving us our names? All right, Lionel, what are your deals and promotions?
So right now, we are offering half off the second guest on all of our voyages that are departing August of this year through April of next year, with $500 onboard credit and free Wi-Fi. But because I was invited to be here and speak to all of you, I'm also adding an additional incentive. This is specifically with Roseborough, so this is not available with Azamara directly or with any other agency for that matter, and that's $300 to $500 onboard credit on top of whatever else is available. So whatever you find online, whatever they find on their site, however you want to package it, at Roseborough, I'll have an additional $300 to $500, and that could be for any voyage, and we currently are published through 2022.
Oh, wow. All right, well, as far as Scenic and Emerald, I do have to say, if there's anybody who's looking for some travel for this year, for 2019, there's a few little spots available, not an awful lot, but there's a few little holes in different spots this year, and there's really some very good offers out there in a few different places. But for being here tonight, there is an extra offer for anything that if you decide you want to travel with Scenic or Emerald, we'll take another $125 per person off of that. But we do, again, have some good stuff going on. It's hard to mention. There's always some offers and things that are out there. 2020's on the books. There's some great air offers out there in place for 2019. There's a few things out here. And the one thing we just know very confidently is working with our friends at Roseborough, you're always going to get the best deal. And each of us are throwing in a little bit something extra for you. So my little lagniappe here is an extra $125 a person to be able to take off.
Yeah, with us, there are also, I mean, quite an array of promotions, and you will be able to find, I mean, I have a few of them with me, and what we call the cruise spotlight, and basically this comes every second month, and there we have some specific promotions depending on the itinerary. At the moment we have some free air, for example, or 2-for-1 in business. So there are I agree, there are a lot of different possibilities. And that's, once again, why we rely. I mean, we know the product, we know our ships, they know the offers. So that's why I rely on you folks again, and then we will do, I will do as well, so $100 off per person. You can choose if you wanted to have it as an onboard credit or off the price of the cruise. That will be, and that's also exclusive to Roseborough travel.
I have a 2-week offer that starts tomorrow, so the clock will be ticking. I have over 180 voyages that are going to be listed. Roseborough has received that from me. It's like 14 pages, so obviously I'm not putting packets up at the back of the desk, for everybody to scroll through. It's up to $1,000 per person off of the fares, and that's after all any kind of promotional discounts or available promos in the marketplace. On our ocean ships, we have over $250 per person off of river, $200 per person off of yacht. Now, the way that we work it is obviously for our 2019 voyages, we don't have as many voyages that we're still now offering these discounts off of because they're sold out. We're very limited in space, but we have voyages that are all the way out to 2021 on the list. We have a 2022 world cruise that we're already selling as well. But on that list, over 180 voyages. If you're interested in voyages, the team at Roseborough will be able to let you know what dollar off savings they will receive. You get that in conjunction with whatever their industry amenities are going to be as well. Nothing off on the expedition, folks. Sorry, she's brand new and she's selling out. So just the yacht, the river, and the ocean, but still some amazing opportunities. And if you guys are looking to travel a little closer to home to kind of dip your toes in the water, I do have some really great additional dollars off savings for some of those Caribbean cruises out of Fort Lauderdale and Miami in November and December. Short of 7 days, as long as 15 days, a really great way to sample and see if Crystal's the right fit for you.
We have free airfare throughout the world. Every destination is free airfare. Some really low business class add-ons, including Europe at $6.99 per person each way for business class, which is a deal and a half. Yes, I see some.
That's good.
Yeah.
Big time.
Once you sit in the front of the bus, you don't want to go back.
Don't miss what you never had.
We have a 10%, if you book anything from 2021 onwards, it's an additional 10% savings if you pay in full by June 28th. And then for Roseborough Travel tonight, we have an additional $500 savings per suite off anything you book for 2019 or 2020. And then as an additional amenity, I will be putting a VIP package on anybody that books within 2 weeks of this. It gives you some nice amenities. The biggest one is free laundry on board. You don't have to do your laundry. So that will be included. Thank you.
I like all of those additional for all of you. So.
Yeah, they do.
The laundry.
It's the value.
We're
Laundry.
going to let all of you get up and take a moment to go to your tables because some of you brought some door prizes and stuff like that. But that way you all have a moment to be able to get up, stretch your legs because you've been sitting there, and go to your tables before we do some drawing.